to see you and welcome to our Craft Box Threads workshop number 2. So today I'll be talking us through how we can create these Bohemian wall hangings. We'll be using embroidery thread today, but if you have wool or rope or even ribbon lying around, you can create pieces using that material as well. So you can experiment. So today we'll want some embroidery thread. Now if you're doing a long piece like this, you'll probably want between 15 and 20 embroidery threads. You'll also want a piece of wooden dowel, so that can be the length that you choose. You'll also want a firm piece of cardboard that doesn't bend easily, a pair of scissors, and optional extra is a comb or a hairbrush, and I'll show you why we use that later. So all of these materials are available to purchase from my studio. They come in a box like this, and this contains the materials and equipment you'll need for our 5 workshops as part of our Craft Box Threads. Okay, so let's get going. So first of all, we're going to want to decide what colours of threads we want to use. And the nice thing to do is to line them all up so that you can get a good idea of what they'll look like all together. The reason for doing this is that it may be that you like certain colours, but once you put them together, you may decide, actually, I'm not going to use those colours, I think other colours may suit it better. It also may be that you want to choose your colours and depending on where you're going to want to put your piece or who you're going to give your piece to. So I'm going to start now by choosing my colours. You can see I did a really bright example here, but then when I use the wool, they're a lot darker in colour. So I think I'm going to choose blues and greens today. So I'm going to choose the ones that I want and just line them up in front of me. I can always change my mind, but I'm just going to get a rough idea. I'm just moving them around, maybe swapping some different colours in until I'm happy with the order. So at the moment, I'm thinking this will be my middle colour, and then I'll be working outwards. Now each of these embroidery threads, these will create 2 different sections. So essentially, there'll be a mirror image of all of these threads on the other side. It'll become clearer once I get going. So I'm going to start with this middle piece. Okay, I've got my wooden dowel and then my strip of cardboard here. Now what we're going to want to do is just cut a little triangle out of either end. This gives us something to wrap the embroidery thread around, just like this piece here. It's got 2 little triangles cut out of either end. So I find it easiest to use this inside section of the scissors rather than right at the tip. And it might be quite firm. I'm just doing one end and the other end. Now this length here, this will be the length of your longest piece of thread. We can always cut them shorter, but they won't be any longer than this if we use one this length. If you're wanting to do a really long piece where the threads go lower down, then you'll want to get another piece of cardboard and cut out triangles from that. So now I've got my template here to wrap my thread around, and then I've taken my paper piece off, and then I'm just going to gently pull at the thread and loosen it up. What I'm then going to do is pop my thread at the top inside one of the slits. I'm then going to start wrapping it around, and I'm doing it fairly tightly. I'm not leaving it all loose and wrapping. I'm just wrapping it around the front, around the back, and each one of those that you do is 1. So I've done 1, and then that's 2, 3, and I'm going to do 6 of these. That's 4. Sometimes it may be that it gets a little bit, it looks like it's going to knot. If you just pull it really loosely, then it'll unravel. Don't pull it tight because it will create that knot. So I've done 4, 5, 6. Once you've reached 6, I'm going to cut off the thread, and then I'm also going to cut all of these. So I started up here wrapping my thread, and this is the same side that I'm going to cut from. And you'll find that you have 6 equal lengths of thread. That's why we use it, just so that it's a quicker way, essentially, of getting lengths the same. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my wooden dowel and I'm going to fold these in half, so the lengths are equal here, and I'm going to lay it underneath my dowel. I'm then going to take these 2 ends and thread them through this little loop that I've created. And I'm then going to pull. If it ends up like this, all you need to do is just give it a little wiggle and these 2 ends will come together. I'm then going to move on to my next colour. So this one for me is next. Now I'm going to do 6 wraps around each one because I'm going to do the width of colour, I want the same all the way along. But for example, if you only wanted a tiny bit of colour in some areas, then you only need to wrap it round here maybe 2 or 3 times. So my next colour is going to be this lovely sky blue. I'm going to start at the top, and again, because I want the same width, I'm going to wrap it around 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oh, little knot. So I'm just going to loosen that a little bit. 6. At that same end where I started, I'm going to snip and then just get underneath here and snip again. Got my lengths of 6, fold it in half, lay my piece of dowel over the top, and then thread these 2 pieces through this loop. You'll notice on here we have one side that looks like this and the other side that looks like this. You can see there's a slight difference because of where the knot is. So make sure that if you want it looking the same on both sides, that you always have the dowel the same way up each time. You'll see on this piece here, it's more noticeable. So all the knots are on the front, and then you can see this is what the back looks like. Now the reason I chose 6 for mine is so that I've still got some thread left over to do this again, because I want in my piece for it to be a mirror image. So I've got my white as the central, and then all of the others I'm going to have 2 going along, 1 on each side. You see I've actually got some thread left over, so if I wanted to, I could actually change it to maybe 7 or 8 loops for each one, but it depends on how long your piece of cardboard is here as to how many loops you'll get out of each thread. So now what I'm going to do is continue using this same technique to thread all the way along my piece of dowel to however far I want. Of course, it might be that, for example, if I choose, oh, actually I want a darker blue in the middle, you can just slide them along and add some extra colours in. So don't feel like these are all set in place as soon as you pop them on your dowel. You can change them around. So for this one, instead of wrapping it around 6 times, I'm actually going to wrap it around 12 times. This is another way of doing it, and you can see which way you prefer. So I've wrapped this round 12 times. I'm going to, just like before, snip at the end, the same side. To do this, you might find it easier if you bend the cardboard just a little bit. There's a bit of a gap to slide your scissors into. So I've done it 12 times, and now I'm going to separate it into 2 lots of 6s. So this is just an alternative method. Rather than doing a 6, snipping it and then doing another 6, you could do 12 and then separate it into 2 6s. So you can just see what you find easiest or what you enjoy most doing. Okay, so I'm coming towards the end now of my piece. Now you'll be able to see on my piece here, they're not all the same length. They're very slightly different, and that's okay, because now we're going to have the chance to decide if we want them all the same length. So if I want to chop them so they're all the same, like this one. Okay, so there's a straight line at the bottom. Or it may be that you want to do a V shape, like this one here. Okay. Or it may be that you want to do a all wibbledy-wobbledy or any other kind of shape that you would like. So for my one, I'm going to do it a V shape, I think, for this one. So to do that, I need a piece of thread first, because I'm going to tie a piece of thread so that it basically allows it to hang. We're going to want this in order to hang on our wall. And you can decide how long you want this piece of thread to be. I'm going to have mine quite short. So I'm just tying a double knot to each end. And because I want it short, I'm just seeing how long I want that, deciding I want the knot about there, and then tying a double knot, just like you might start on your shoelaces. So 1 knot, and then the second one. I'm just going to cut these excess sections off because we don't need this. Okay, so now I'm just going to wiggle these knots along so they're not too visible. Okay, and now we're going to want to use our comb, if you have one available, or even a hairbrush, just so that we can straighten out all of these strands. Can make a real difference. You might also want to do this once you have put it on the wall, and just give it a little bit of a stroke through with your brush or your comb, and it can really neaten up its appearance. So at the moment it's all different lengths, which is actually, I do quite like it for this one, but I'm going to do a V shape. And to do this, I can either ask someone just to hold it up for me, or I can hang it on a doorknob and then snip away. So I would go down and then I would snip up again. So I'm just snipping away. The key thing is not to cut off too much. You can always go away and snip off some more, but you can never add bits to it. So just be aware that if you cut a bit off and want to even it up, it might just get shorter and shorter and shorter, at which point it's up here. So just make sure that you're not cutting off too much, and then after you've done the main snips, you can then just get your comb and neaten it up just a little bit more. So here's the finished piece. I hope you've enjoyed creating and experimenting. If it doesn't go right the first time, it's okay, just have another go. But most of all, I hope you enjoy yourselves. These little bits at the end I tend to keep because there may be projects in the future that we can use these for. So I hope you've enjoyed, and I look forward to seeing you at our next tutorial. Bye for now.